Welcome to But For Real, a variety show podcast co-hosted by two therapists who also happen to be loudmouth feminists. I'm Valerie, your resident elder millennial child-free cat lady.
And I'm Emerson, your resident chronically online Gen Z brat. And on the show, we'll serve up a new episode every other week that will take you on a wild ride through the cultural zeitgeist, mental health, and beyond.
You'll definitely laugh and TBH sometimes maybe cry a little because this is a silly and serious show.
Buckle up, my friends, and let's get into today's episode.
And we're back.
And we're back.
Yay.
As always.
Uh-huh.
How's it going?
It's going well. I am feeling the sun shining on my face.
Well, yes.
A soft couch underneath. So can't complain.
How grounded of you.
I know.
Look at us in this mindful moment.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, the census. Okay, so I want to know, what is something big or small, doesn't matter, that's just like made you feel good lately?
I'll answer your question in a moment, but when you started with I want to know, I immediately was it Usher? I want to know what to do. No?
I mean, and did I go to an Usher concert as a child living in Shanghai? Yes.
It also might even not be Usher because I'll lose my millennial card for that. I'm like, I don't fucking know who that is, but I just know the line. And
well.
Anyway, so what is something that has made me feel good? I'm going to say, this is just what came to me just in this moment, my Squishmallow. I just love my little Squishmallow.
What do they look like?
So the one that I have was like a Halloween line from a couple years ago, and so it's a raccoon dressed as a monster.
You're
so
scary
cute.
animal.
I know. And I just discovered, like, I don't know, listeners, if any of you can relate to this who are side sleepers, but when I discovered how critical it is to be holding something on my side, like even if it has to be a hotel pillow.
Wow.
If I'm not holding something, I'm like, my shoulders are caving in.
Yeah, because I'm a T-Rexer by nature, you know?
Get yourself a squish or something to hold. Yeah.
I've heard that they have really big ones.
They do.
And people just straight up use them as pillows.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm like, wait.
You could just be in bed surrounded by different sizes of Squishmallow. That's a kink. Anyway, what's something that's made you feel good lately?
That's a kink. Let me think. I feel like this is like the schmedium category. That's like some small, but like feels big. I feel like there's been a few instances lately where, and if you're neurodivergent, hey, where I've really been trying to work on like expanding my flexibility. Ooh. I can just be very like over controlling and rigid just from like emotional instability purposes. So I think there's just been a couple of moments lately where something arguably not that big of a deal or mundane has happened, and the old me would have been like, are you fucking kidding? I just like freaked out, but I've just been like, okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Everything's fine. Yeah.
It's fine. I've been doing some reparenting. I'm like, you're okay, actually.
Yeah.
It's okay. Some willing hands, DBT, everyone. I'm like, I can accept that this moment is annoying as fuck. And it just be what it be.
I am meeting this annoying moment.
Well, yes. So it's like when the therapy is therapying, basically.
I love that. Yay.
Fun stuff.
Very fun. I don't know. Did you ever watch Friends? Or like obviously The Syndicated?
Like, not no, really. But I know the tea.
Well, there was a really funny episode where I don't even remember the full context, but like Rachel's trying to be like chill. It's just like, I'm breezy. So you're just trying to be breezy.
I'm breezy.
Yeah, it's great.
Now it's time for our first segment, Tea and Crumpets, where we tell you what we can't stop talking about this week.
My tea this episode is a book called Book Lovers by Emily Henry. You know that I always say it is hard for me to get into fiction. And so when my book club picks a fiction book, I'm like, okay, I know we've had some good choices, so we'll see. But this is just, we've been reading some heavy shit. And like in this day and age, sometimes we need some levity.
Well,
we need a little rom-com, which is what this is. But it is very intelligently written.
Yes.
Like it's actually good writing, which of course you cannot say about most rom-coms.
No.
So I really appreciate that. Like witty characters, just really enjoying it. I'm still only like 40% through, but highly recommend.
The girls
Book lovers.
really love Emily Henry.
Yeah?
She's popular.
I'm like, who are the girls?
The girls is in the collective.
The proverbial girls.
Well, proverbial. The girls. Yeah, Book Talk really likes Emily Henry stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, because Book Talk has given me some shiesty recommendations. I'm like,
did y'all only read this because it's on Kindle Unlimited?
Well,
please.
right. And there's like a cartoon on the cover, which I know is the tea, but everyone really sips
Good.
Emily Henry's tea.
I'm enjoying it. What's yours?
Okay, so mine is from TikTok because, hey, I have a rotted brain. But take a shot every time I talk about my best friend Valerie on here. But, like, we just influence each other in the best ways,
Good.
you know? I'm like, this queen. So I was at her house a few weekends ago, and she's, like, prepping a dense bean salad.
Dense bean salad. Now, I'm a
DBS.
vegan. I know a little thing about a bean salad, but
well,
a dense bean salad?
A dense bean
Tell
salad.
me more.
So from Violet Witchell on TikTok, shout out mama. She just is like, hey, come prep a dense bean salad with me. So we were just having this like kiki moment. So it's exactly what it sounds like. And then it's kind of open for interpretation.
Okay.
So can of chickpeas, we did white beans, we did some pickled red onions.
You know, with the pickled red onion.
I have a new recipe to share with you wouldn't even believe. So we're putting pickled reds in there, we're putting some oregano in there.
Okay.
And so you just like pack it up however you want, and then it's basically just like meal prep. Like I really struggle with lunch. I'm not a lunch person, but I also become a bitch midday because I don't eat well. And so I feel like I've just been like getting in my veg, getting in my fiber.
Yeah.
I mean, be careful
Fiber
with
is-
Gassy McGee,
right.
right? Beans.
Well,
but
take your Beano.
Well,
Beano
right.
gives you that enzyme.
Yep.
I will evangelize a Beano.
Sure.
But I love this dense bean salad because
It's totally your gig.
right, and like so many bean salads are like, this is a 3 bean salad, this is a 5 bean salad, this is how many fucking beans you want.
However many beans that you want, honey. So the chickpea is always my base bean, and then I just get creative. I've thrown edamame in there. I've done like an Asian fusion one.
Some tomato.
Well, yes. You can throw in whatever you want, and then it kind of sits and gets kind of like
marinate
pickled
it.
and nice, so it kind of just gets better as the week goes on. It's just been delish. With a
Okay.
pita chip, you're kidding.
Man, I love it.
Get into the gig.
Now it's time for Step Into My Office, where you get advice from your favorite professionally qualified, personally peculiar therapists.
Dear Em and Val, every time I try to rest or take a break, my brain immediately starts yelling things like, are you kidding? Do you see those dishes in the sink? Or, you haven't earned rest yet. Stop being so lazy. Even on weekends or vacations, I feel low-key guilty for not being productive. Any advice for quieting that voice without just working through it? Thanks, the shame queen.
Ooh, this is completely unrelatable.
Never felt this way, literally ever.
Listeners, we might as well have just said this was my submission. And probably half of you listening.
Well, thoughts for our shame queen?
Oh my gosh. I mean, obviously we're going to deep dive into
Sure.
this topic today, but just, I mean, when those thoughts show up, there's so many strategies, but I think like, let's keep it simple. And first and foremost, just like come back to the mantra of rest does not have to be earned. Right? Because, like, obviously our ambitions matter. We have shit that we need to get done. Like, it has to happen, period. Right? So all of that is true. And also, none of it happens if we are just machines all the time. So, like, rest is something that you inherently need, not something that you have to earn, a set quota of every day. Right?
Yes. I also really love framing. Those are also good. And I also really love framing for people in that similar vein that, like, rest is really radical. Like, sometimes if we're having a hard time thinking of our own, like, personal relationship to rest, like, if we can zoom out and think in, like, a macro kind of sphere, like, how radical it is to be resting. Like, when you are going home and you're not, like, bringing your work home with you too much, you know? Or you, like, actually set yourself up in the week and then on your weekends, like, it is kind of like a guilt-free, like, yeah, like, not because I earned it, but because these just aren't the days that I'm working and doing shit. So I can just, like, go do what I want. You can also do what you want during the week. Please don't let anything steal your joy, ever. But, yeah, just like look at it as like a radical choice sometimes.
Yeah, right. And I feel like I've mentioned maybe conditions of enoughness on the pod before, but I'll just bring it back in here because I do feel like sometimes part of the mind fuck is we're like, well, yeah, I do need to like work on this paper or this project today, but because there's no like, I'm not going to get it done, or it's a thing that's just ongoing, there's no one defining for me what enough is. So then I just feel guilty when I stop. Define what enough is. If you're like, you know what, I got like a whole mountain of laundry over here and I could just do laundry all day and nothing else, define what enough is for that day. Be like, I'm going to do 2 loads. And after that, that's enough for the day. And I get to do whatever the hell else I want, right? So that tool is really helpful for me.
I like that. Yeah, stay tuned for this like whole episode, everyone.
I know.
All the inner voices.
And now it's time for the DSM. In our DSM, all varieties of dysfunction, spiraling, and meltdowns are welcome. In this segment, we break down complicated concepts and common misconceptions about mental health, well-being, and tell you what we really think.
So today in our DSM, we are talking about that bitchy little voice in your head.
Bitchy.
That Regina George, like, come on. So ye old inner critic goes by many names.
Wow.
But we're going to start talking a little bit about the psychology of self-criticism.
We have degrees.
Put my glasses on. So one psychologist whose work I really like around this is Ethan Kross. He wrote a book called Chatter. And he talks about how, you know, we all walk around living our lives with this fucking voice in our heads, right? And the voice is there kind of narrating the whole experience, right? It's not just the inner critic, but we have our inner monologue that serves many functions, right? It helps us plan, it helps us reflect, it helps us regulate, make sense of our experiences. So it's sort of like the journal inside your head, right? Like we need to have it. And it's a normal part of being a human, but it can get toxic. It can get sort of stuck in a loop. And then when that happens, obviously, it can be its own source of stress and shame. And all of that can in turn impact how we're performing and just overall be damaging for our well-being.
Yeah.
So that's what he calls, that's when it has turned to chatter.
I like
which is,
that.
Yeah, the name of his book. And it stops helping us and really starts harming us. So just recognizing that it is, you know, a natural process, but that can get sort of distorted. So it's that negative spiraling self-talk loop that can be harsh and judgmental. And here's the thing is like, because there's no like, and this is where we'll get into like the parts kind of stuff. There's no distinction between the way that voice sounds when it's just telling me like, oh, here's what I'm going to wear today. And here, you know, just sort of the monologue versus when it's criticizing me. It's not like switching voices, although you can use that as a trick, right? So it can feel just like this source of objective truth, whereas it's actually not, right? Because it's often distorted. Just like, you know, in cognitive behavioral therapy, they talk about how there's so many thought distortions that we're getting into all the time. And those are happening in that internal monologue. And if they are about you, they're just distorted thoughts that happen to be about you. So the goal, of course, isn't to silence that, change our relationship with it, which we'll get into. And I love this little quote from Ethan. He says, we often think the way to feel better is to dive into our thoughts, but the real power comes from stepping back from them, right? Like, it's not always a good neighborhood in here. Sometimes we need to, like, be aware that there's some distortion happening and it's not helpful to just swim around in. So, which I feel like there's a little bit too much of, like, just, you know, listen to yourself and, like, what is your wisdom telling you? It's like your wisdom might actually be this feeling coming from all these distorted thoughts. So like we have to be a little cautious there. Obviously, self-criticism and like how intense that is in each person's life is influenced by a lot of psychosocial, environmental factors, developmental, what was going on, you know, at that sort of critical phase of development. But I will also say I'm always a big proponent of like not every like person carrying around shame came from a super traumatic background, right? Like, yes, developmental factors play a role, but even without that, there's all of these, evolutionary psychology, all these variables that are sort of, support this inner chatter happening. I liked this piece that you included from the psychologist Golan Shar. Says that self-criticism can start really early, caused by harsh, critical, punitive family relationships, also vulnerable genetics that can give us sort of that trait-based experience that we might tend to seek flaws. And of course, that self-critique then gets exacerbated by all the environmental and cultural stuff, like beauty standards and messages about external success, and so on and so on. So that's just like a little peek into kind of where does this come from? And just remember that there are many sources that can fuel this and that it is normal, but it's sort of like that idea of if you were walking around with a huge dog that you lived with and you took into public with you, and you had just said, well, I don't need to train this dog. What would you expect to happen?
Girl,
like, shit is going to be tore up, and, like, it's not going to be pretty. So there needs to be training there. And obviously we don't want to train in a punitive, like, cruel, harsh way.
No.
But there has to be training, and the same is true for our brains and how we relate to our inner thoughts.
Yeah. And I think, even the harsh approach, like what turns up the volume on this, most of the time, I think in the therapeutic space, we have a lot of people that are like, I'm really self-aware, and also it's maybe killing me that I'm like so self-aware, because the awareness is a good thing, and then also the awareness can breed a lot of criticism from that.
And analytical.
Just tossing things over and over. And so where are you vulnerable to toss those things over? From your life experiences, whether you were having that modeling of really like harsh criticism and things like that. And so in the modern adulty interpretation, this comes out, hey, social media, hey, it's maybe sometimes the devil, or it's not. It's just like our interpretation of this thing always. But, if you're feeling self-critical, it can be a perfect container to go on there and compare yourself. Think, oh my God, all these people are doing all of these things. I must be doing everything wrong. And it really can light up those insecurities. I remember just reading, I didn't include any in particular, but just like different studies for this episode, and one of them I was focusing kind of like on Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and just like so many individuals across those generations in particular. All of this is coming out because of social media. Studies of like, my confidence is terrible because I go online and the thing that I hate about myself is all over my For You page. A lot more of like beauty standards, just, things like that makes people feel like shit, no matter how young you are.
It's so funny, and that's so true, because I've experienced that. It's like, if you ever like Google or you look up a one time on Instagram, like crow's feet, it's like, guess what's all over that For You page, right?
Crow's feet, the house down boots, girl. Yes. It's almost like your phone is like, we're here.
Remember that thing that you're insecure about?
Yeah, remember that thing that you Googled last night at 2 a.m. when you were fried and freaking out? Babe, it's here actually at 9 a.m. and it's going to make you feel like shit all day. So, thanks, Instagram. Unhealthy relationship dynamics. I think especially if we're looking how this stuff comes up in adulthood, if your parents were being shitty, they may still be being shitty. And that self-critical stuff comes up when you leave Sunday dinner with them and think, why the fuck did I just come visit these people that make me feel like shit? Yeah. It could be parents, it could be siblings, other family relationships. Relationship to self in all of this. The people that are self-aware are also very critical most of the time. Romantic relationships, I think, is really a big one that not all, but some people then can arrive at, I think my relationship with criticism to myself now is really spilling out in my romantic relationship, whether it's I don't feel like I'm a good partner, or some of the criticism spilling out onto partnership where I don't think that you're doing enough, or you're not being enough, and all this kind of criticalness can be a little bit weird and kind of just exacerbates different kinds of behaviors. And then, of course, unprocessed trauma throughout all of that, whether it's trauma from your family or that job that made you feel so run down and then kind of changed how you think about yourself. You know, it can happen to literally anyone. Nobody is free from the possibility of being really self-critical.
Yep. Yeah, and I think, like, yes, there's through therapy and healing and all of that, like, you can shift some of those core beliefs that like underpin a lot of the sort of chatter and self-criticism. And also, just because of how our brains work, like, that stuff isn't necessarily going to go away. We're just going to get better at identifying it and sort of shifting our attention, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
So parts work is an interesting way of working with this sort of inner voice. And I always like to say I'm on a tirade, to be honest. Everyone's like, oh my God, Richard's shorts, IFS. Oh my God, it's so amazing.
It's
and
gatekeepy. For clinicians, it's just kind of gatekeepy.
It's gatekeepy in the sense of like, oh, well, do you want to be a real IFS therapist? Then you need to do levels 1, 2, and 3, and it's going to cost you $15,000, and you're going to... So, no, I went searching on the internet I was like, surely someone has put into words some of the issues that I have with this model. And I found a Reddit post, and I'm like, I'm literally bringing it to Breakfast Club because I'm like, we need to talk about these things. So all that to say, listeners who maybe don't care about this stuff as much in terms of nerding out about therapy modalities, but know that IFS does not own the idea of parts work. Parts work is just something we can all do, working with like our little inner child that might show up like and doesn't want to get out of bed and go to work. Like, honey, I hear you. And also like lovingly, we got to get up, right? Like, don't be an asshole to yourself is basically the moral of the story.
Yes.
It's yes, you need to get up, but also like, can you not be rude to yourself about it, right? So parts work can look like a lot of different things. And, you know, not everything is coming from a part is one of my main sort of issues with IFS is sort of like if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. But where working with our parts can be really helpful is it helps us to understand what are the functions of these behaviors. Like if whatever that thing is that you're like, God, why do I keep doing this?
That.
Like, guess what? For some aspect of you, it serves the function.
Yeah.
It serves valuable functions, right? Even things that were like, I can't believe I'm still doing this. Like, I guarantee if you look hard enough, you're going to find ways that it's serving some part of you. And so that doesn't mean that it's just like, oh, well, in that case, I'll just keep doing it, right? But it just helps give us a little bit more empathy for ourselves and self-compassion so that as we are working on maybe shifting something, we're coming from that place, which is just so much more effective than like, God, I'm such a fucking idiot. I can't believe... Like, shocking. Shame is not a great motivating
and I have clients that fight me on this level all the time where, like, I have no internal drive or internal motivator, so shame is the one that gets me going. And I'm like, but baby, that's not sustainable.
Right.
You can do it.
In the short
and it
term,
may even work.
And then
but the long term, you're going to feel like shit.
You'll crash and burn. Yeah.
Well, yes.
And I do say that, like, I might have even said this on the pod before, that I part of where I will disagree a little bit with IFS is, you know, IFS is sort of like, oh, you can't have any judgment toward any of your parts, and you must be loving, and right. And I'm just like, I really, with my inner critic, I kind of have a tough love approach where like, I'm not a bitch back because it's like then you're doing that inner fighting with yourself, and what does that do? But I'm like, listen, we don't talk to ourselves that way. I have a zero tolerance policy for bullying, right? And that includes in this head.
That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah. So like that firm, and it's firm, but it's not harsh and cruel, right?
No.
So anyway, also I love the bus metaphor of like keeping that wise adult in the driver's seat, right? Because that 13-year-old is like, she wants to jump in, and guess what? She's not probably going to take me anywhere good.
Girl, we're going to Starbucks and having a unicorn poop frappuccino, and we're going to throw up after.
Exactly.
You know?
So you know, if that helps you to think about like, what does it look like when your inner critic jumps in the driver's seat, and how can you sort of acknowledge like, all right, I get it. You're here to protect me, to keep me from being rejected, and also like when you jump in the driver's seat, it's not super helpful, so maybe we try it like this.
Sure.
That's a super quick and dirty version of kind of what we do. But what else do you think?
No, I think you've hit the main ones, you know, like IFS, internal family systems. Did we even say that?
I don't know.
Internal family systems, the modality. I think IFS is becoming really big. Like, I think even just like from when I was in grad school, I have just seen more of a boom with it. And I think I've done IFS-ish. I've done parts work with clients, and some of them really love it. And it gives that kind of internal mapping and more of like a through line to, oh, I know this isn't me right now.
Yes.
This is the one part you'll always hear me talking about is my bitchy teenager. That's the part that I'm connected the most to. And it's kind of my manager a little bit. Like, she's kind of critical, but she's also kind of one of my exile-y parts because she's just sad. Yeah. So she just comes out fierce. And so, we'll talk more about the like inner critical bits in a second, but it can have that mapping can provide you a really great landscape for some self-exploration. And I agree that like not everything that we do is a part of self that's like repressed and doing so. Sometimes we just like do shit. Right. I don't really know how else to say it.
We don't have to look at it through only that lens.
No. Right. Yeah. Okay. So what the fuck do we even do with the inner critic? Not kill it. Even if she's a bitch, even if they're bitchy, the house down boots, we can't kill them.
We actually can't even kick her off the bus, unfortunately.
No, she does have to have a spot on the bus, and she's going to be mad and kind of kick the back seat and be an asshole about, whatever. So it's not the enemy. This part isn't an enemy part. It also is maybe not your most desirable part. Like we said, that's fine. So befriend it. Now, okay, everyone's going to be like, well, I can't befriend this part if I hate them. Listen, it's not about hatred. Just start by noticing.
Yeah.
Really, that's like everything in life, I think, that I'm learning so far is encountering and noticing. Yes. So notice the voice, but without fusing with it. So kind of catch yourself, I just made a mistake. I'm just so fucking stupid. I can't even believe. Whoa. There's this voice telling me this thing again. So even the like diffusing part, it's me, or I noticed this voice in my head. So that automatically puts a little bit of distance there. And then kind of poke around with some curious questions. So you can say, like, by doing this or by reacting this way, what are you trying to protect me from? In direct, like, talking to that part. Or I also love, when did you learn to speak to me like this? Or where did you hear this? Sometimes if your first bullies were people that were taking care of you when you were little, it's like, oh, this is my dad's voice. This is my grandma's voice. This is my mom's voice. Sometimes it's not childhood voices. It's that really shitty boss when you worked at Taco Bell who was just running that shit like the Navy, Like, it's just different. So name the pattern, not the person. Reframing, again, like, a part of me feels unworthy versus I'm unworthy. It even just feels different. I'm unworthy. A part of me feels unworthy.
And I love that because I feel like people often get so frustrated with like, oh my God, I thought I was past all of this like trauma shit. And like, I thought that I believed that I had self-worth now. But then I had this thought the other day that like, oh, I don't deserve
all of it.
Right. Yep. And it's like, no. Like, you still have whatever that sort of healing and progress that you made of connecting with the truth that that you deserve love or to be treated well or you're worthy or whatever, that your wise adult self still knows that.
Sure.
It's just some other part of you doesn't, and that's okay.
Yeah, most of the time your parts literally don't even know about each other or know you as self. That's why there's like a ton of exploring to do in there. So yeah, just kind of some of the parsing out I think is really important for the critic. So it just creating a little bit of space between you and then the shame spiral that usually comes. And also this part is up for interpretation for anyone, but give your critic a name. Give them a personality, give them a vibe. Some people have really full-fledged kind of, what's the word? Solar systems I always talk about.
Does your inner critic have, I mean, I know you mentioned the teenager.
Bitchy teenager. I mean, she's the one where I'm just like, I don't know. My manager, she's girlina for sure, and she's like an older lady voice, kind of like a
finger wagging.
Yeah, like my grandmother, kind of like maternal-ish figure, but I don't really have like a full-fledged picture. It's just the vibes.
Yeah.
Just like your old ass, mean ass fucking grandma that like kind of hates you and is like irritated that you're here.
Yeah.
Like being foolish, but you're not being a fool. You're just being a fucking 5-year-old. So.
Yeah. And again, listeners, it's like, give it an avatar if it feels useful, right? It can just be one more thing to help you remember in those moments. Like, oh, hold on, this is not my wise self talking, right? I don't use it a lot, but when I sort of last kind of went through that exercise, mine is like named Hillary, and she wears like, you know, she's like dressed to the nines and has the lashes and all of the degrees and like has all of the things that I think that I should have. Fucking Hillary. This bitch. Yeah. Okay, so inviting in self-compassion, like I was saying earlier, it's just an opportunity to relate to yourself differently, right? Like I always go back to Dr. Kristen Neff, who's kind of the big researcher on self-compassion, and she talks about in her ancient TED Talk that I still refer back to, kind of how self-esteem, which is what we're sort of taught, we need to have positive self-esteem, is how we judge or evaluate ourselves. Yes. Whereas self-compassion is how we relate to ourselves. So it's like you look in the mirror, you're having a crappy body image day, you're like, if you're focused on the self, you know, how I'm judging or evaluating myself, you're automatically set up for like a not fun experience, right? Whereas if you show up, same kind of like feeling kind of bleh, but your intention is to practice self-compassion and be kind to yourself, it's, you know, then it's just like, hey girl, good morning, right?
It just feels different.
It's different. So, you know, really leaning into that and recognizing that it is called a practice for a reason, right? It's not like a skill you just learn and then you're done forever. It's something to return back to and almost look at like how, you know, our default mode is more that self-protective piece, which is negativity bias and is going to lean us naturally toward self-judgment. So it has to be like on purpose that we steer towards self-compassion.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yay.
So practical steps, like you gave that great example of cognitive diffusion, that even if like you're saying like, I'm such an idiot. Oh, I notice I'm having the thought right now that I'm an idiot, like an idiot, right? Yeah. So that is, those little tools are super helpful. Also think, you know, how would you treat a friend, right? Would you talk to a friend that way? And that's, I always, it's one of my pet peeves. And I know that I've been there myself, but my commitment is if I catch myself speaking to myself the way, like not how I would speak to a friend, I will call my own bullshit, right? Like I'll call myself on my hypocrisy and I'll be like, oh, we don't do that here. Let me try again, right? And so just don't let yourself off the hook with like, oh, well, yeah, it's not true for anyone else, but it's true for me. You little hypocrite. Like, no, you have a choice there to choose a different story and, you know, choose to live in alignment with your values and not just your default thinking. Also, I love Sherry Huber, who's like a meditation guru. She talks about a recording and listening practice, and there's a whole community around that if you're interested in sort of audio stuff. This is a way of sort of cultivating this relationship with self in a really deep way using audio journaling, essentially. But what the practice that I really like is like, okay, if you're going through it and you just have some shit that you need to process, take your phone, open your voice recorder, hold it in your left hand, and just, you know, dump whatever you need to dump, like whatever shitty thoughts you're having. But then you switch your phone into your right hand, and then you're tapping into, she calls it your inner mentor or your mentor. But think of it, that inner wise self, like whatever, what would a friend say? Tap into that voice, respond from that place, and then that's the one that you listen to again. Like the other one, just don't listen to it again, you know, delete it, whatever. But listen to that voice of your inner mentor. I just really love that practice.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Never heard of that before. So, more tidbits. And this one, I think, has been probably some of the most powerful ones for me is the second arrow of suffering, which, like, I remember you taught me about, like, an internship, but I tell literally everyone about it. The quick and dirty, we have the link, you know, in the description for you all, but there's, like, a Buddhist principle about, like, suffering. Like, Buddhism posits that, like, suffering is inevitable. It's a grave part of human experiencing, and it's just basically how you know you're alive, pretty much. So when something shitty happens, an arrow gets shot, that kind of hurts. Ouch. you know, but because suffering and pain is an inevitable part of human experience, you're going to get the first arrow anyways. The second arrow is basically the one that we are then in control of. So I often say, you're then the archer in the forest standing across from you, ready to Katniss Everdeen that shit into your heart. And so if I fuck something up and I go, oh man, I fucked something up and like, this kind of sucks. And I disappointed that person. Oh, first arrow. I can just leave it there. Instead of digging in a second arrow and being like, I'm the fucking worst. I can't believe this. I suck so bad. That person hates me. Do you hate me? You know, it's like, hey, girl, like reel it in a little bit. Don't shoot off that second arrow. And then mantras. People kind of roll their eyes at a mantra, but like, you should see my bathroom mirror. A Post-it note, we're locked in. And it's not even just like, I really uber love myself. You know, like it's totally fine if you do, but I often catch myself, and again, for neurodiverse people, I really love talking about these kind of grounded moments. This is a moment of suffering.
Yeah.
I'm just holding that for what that is. I'm doing my best. I am worthy of care.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be like, I'm Supergirl, la la la. Like, just literally remind yourself of your own humanity for a second. This really sucks right now, and I have really big feelings. Okay? Yeah. I'm allowed to just do that.
Yep.
And just hold that for what it is. So pick the ones that feel good for you, you know, in this moment.
Love it.
But for real.
But for real.
So many of us deal with, like, internally conflicting thoughts, critical thoughts, and everyone pretty much always feels really alone, but this is a total universal kind of experience. Dealing with the inner critic is a really powerful way to look at self-compassion, and is just, I don't know, like a really present reminder, again, of you can shame yourself time and time again, but you cannot curate sustainable change with yourself by being hateful. And, like, it's kind of not cool to do that. Like, let's
not cool.
Do something else.
Yeah, choose a different story, right?
Choose a different story. Let the arrow be the arrow.
Yeah.
Don't shoot the second one.
And the last thing I'll say on this is, like, I spent way too many years of my own life being sort of fueled by this voice and just living in the shame. And when I sort of took that radical responsibility for, like, I don't have to keep inflicting that on myself, like, it took some work, but it is so worth doing.
Sure, so it's freeing.
Yes. So, yeah, it doesn't mean you'll never experience shame again or never have a self-critical thought. But if you feel like your life is really just driven by that, another resource to check out in the show notes is Aziz Gazipura. I think I'm saying that right, if I'm remembering. But it's called On My Own Side. It's a great book. Tons of resources on self-criticism and how to shift that. But you don't have to live that way.
No.
Yeah.
Let's do something else.
And now, our musical segment. Now that's what I call Okay, where Emerson and I each share a song with each other each week as representatives of our respective generations. We tell you a little bit about the song or artist, and then we press pause, we share the song with each other, and then we come back for our live reaction. And we're capturing it all on a Spotify playlist linked in the show notes for you.
So I'm kicking us off this week with Leave, in parentheses, Get Out, by JoJo, also known as Joanna Levesque. This is from her debut 2004 album. Honestly, just the queen of early 2000s music. I would watch JoJo and I'd be like, wait, this is womanhood. I'm like, wait, no, for sure. Multifaceted talent. She starred in the iconic 2006 movies Aquamarine.
Oh.
With Sarah Paxton and Emma Roberts. Oh my God, shaped my girlhood. I was like, get me by a body of water. Quick.
I might have to
I want to
watch
be
it.
a mermaid. Quickly. Yeah, there's like mermaids and all this fun shit. And then RV with Robin Williams, just like, and Josh Hutcherson, funny ass movie. She performed on The Masked Singer. She's still out touring her early Y2K bops. So we're going to be watching her music video because it's so early 2000s. I just lived.
I'm excited. Okay, listeners, let me just say we recommend that you watch the music video.
So good.
You will get to see this little child in a high school surrounded by a bunch of adult actors, and one of the shirts that she wears says, "Boys stink."
I mean, boys go to Jupiter to get more stupider. So
that's why they need all that Axe body spray.
Stinky. I just got transported back to Rusty Middle School, and I'm like, the walls are closing in. The BO, the ass, the smell. I can't.
Oh my God. Okay, so my song, I know that we don't have to choose a song related to the topic, but I was like, there's my husband and I with a couple of our friends, we had a band for a number of years, and this is one of my favorite tracks that we wrote called Grace, and you will see why it connects. So, and I was thinking, I was like, oh, licensing, we can actually just throw the song in the episode.
Well, sure.
So we'll put in actually like a real audio file, so don't worry about talking over it, because you can talk over it. But I'll just turn it. It's on Spotify, and it's called Grace by Conventional Wisdom. Okay, so I'll play the song, and then I did pull up my little Evernote lyrics, since you might not be able to hear what I'm saying.
I'm so geeked you're on Spotify. You're kidding.
I love that riff.
So good. Who's playing?
My friend Ben on guitar.
Oh.
Of course, Chris on drums.
Of course.
Go, Chris!
He's fucking slaying. You're kidding. Oh, is you Alanis Morissette? The fuck? This bitch has been a rock star this whole time. She didn't even tell me. Like, I knew about it, but I'm like, okay.
There's a little Alanis influence there.
Well, I'm like, okay, send it to a movie company now. The fuck? I'm about to be driving home like this.
Thanks for listening. Yeah,
I love it.
That's, I think, just lyric-wise and how it all came together.
Sure.
Like, one of my favorites, and it's just...
How fun.
Yeah, we all need to give ourselves some grace.
A little bit of grace, I tell you what.
Welcome to the segment, wait, what? Where I fill Val in on all of the internet vernacular and lore so that she doesn't end up being an irrelevant elder millennial.
So, tell me, queening out.
Queening out. I'm so fucking annoying. I can't stop saying it. And so I could explain, but I also wanted to just get this little snippet. This is from @PosterJournal on Instagram. Quote, we need to talk about queening out and its restorative health effects. Queening out is the same thing as hanging out, but for fierce divas.
Fierce divas only.
Well, queening out typically involves gagging or laughing really hard about tea. When queening out, the true inner boots jumps out in order to maximize the joint slay. Queening out works best between two divas because 3 or more would be a kiki and simply a different vibe. Questions.
Oh,
I about shit on the floor. I was like, oh my goodness. Because I consider a twofer a kiki, but I'm like, well.
We might need to reevaluate
Let's
the jargon.
have a kiki because it is more
than two.
So we've just been queening out this whole time.
Queening out for, 16 episodes now?
Yes.
I love that.
2 years. I'm like, good morning.
That is so excellent.
So go queen out later.
Go queen out.
You and
know
Chris
what?
go queen out.
Listeners, yes, queening out is gender inclusive.
Well, yeah, no, go queen out with a man.
Exactly.
If he's
Two
cool.
men, like whoever.
Sure.
Right? Oh my gosh.
And now for our last segment of the show, welcome to Fire Dumpster Phoenix. It is rough out there, y'all, and we need all the hope we can get. It's time to go dumpster diving for some positive news and rise from the leftover Happy Meal ashes together.
What is your good news for the week, Val?
Oh my God. I am just riding a high on Senator Cory Booker.
Work, bitch.
I'm
work.
just like, I've only seen clips of but I tell you, by the end of this year, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to watch that whole fucking 25
You said, Mama, I'm going to
hours.
watch 25 hours.
I am, because, oh my God, I'm sure listeners, you have already heard about this, but let me tell you, like, and not only him standing up for his values and doing it because of how angry his constituents are and wanting to say, listen, I'm listening to you. I hear how upset you are. I hear how afraid you are. And I'm not just going to do my work in the Senate trying to like remedy this, but like, I'm going to make a big fucking deal about it, right?
Yeah.
Like, because I hear you. And the record that he broke was none other than Strom Thurmond's, right, from 1957 with the Civil Rights Act. This asshole just trying to filibuster actual good things happening in the world.
Yep.
And, you know, at that point, he got at least one bathroom break and was also, like, reading laws. Like, a lot of it was just reading laws from, like, 48 states. No, Cory Booker up there just speaking from the heart for 25 hours. Broke the record by it was either almost an hour or a little bit more than an hour. But, I mean, I just am so inspired. And check the show notes for a link to a YouTube clip from Rachel Maddow's show the evening after he finished, where he was still like, I mean, can you imagine your body? Like and your brain? Like, you would not be a functioning.
No.
It was so funny watching this clip because clearly he was like, and what he kept saying, you know, my body is like really going through it, but my spirit is soaring, right? And so that clip, they included like a few clips, impactful parts of his actual speech, and then a little interview from him.
Sure.
Which, of course, she did not want to keep him long.
Sure.
But definitely worth watching.
Shout out. Okay. Mine is that the morning after pill is going to be offered without charge in pharmacies all across England.
Sorry, Americans.
Sorry, America. We suck. We've been new. So the NHS granted for emergency contraception to be free of charge for individuals to access literally all across England. This is just an extra emphasis on expanding access due to like postcode lottery is what they're talking about. So like some folks just don't have the access based on seriously just like their zip code. And, you know, just individuals that could utilize this are just having relief that there's a guaranteed place to go. It's going to free up a ton of GP appointments. Just to be able to go to your local pharmacy, you know, if you're a woman or someone that is AFAB, and just to be able to have the access. And just, there was more posted about it in the article. And, you know, I'm kind of like, I have like 2 feet in the pond, like I'm a dual citizen. So like whenever I see like news from home, I'm always like, and then I'm like, the imminent reality that I live in America, where I'm like, oh my God. But I just, you know, the NHS gets a lot of heat. It's not a perfect system, you know, but there was something like that where I was like, well, thank fucking God. And actually like, yeah, hell yeah.
Right. And, you know, England does stupid shit all the time, too.
Oh my God,
and so it's
stupid.
nice to see like, oh, but also they can do good stuff. And then it gives me hope that even though our country does stupid shit all the time, that maybe we can also do some good stuff.
Yes, you know, like nowhere is perfect. And it's also nice when there's just like access happening for, you know, women and AFAB people, because what's reflected right now for us in America is pretty bleak when it comes to bodily choice and autonomy. Yeah. So shout out NHS in England. Go get that morning after pill, honey. Yep. Don't wait on it.
Love it. Okay, well, that's all we got for you guys today.
Tune in next time for more tea.
See you soon.
Bye.
This has been another episode of But For Real, produced by Valerie Martin and Emerson Ryder and edited by Sean Conklin. But For Real is a Gaia Center production. The Gaia Center offers individual, couples, and group therapy for clients across Tennessee and in person in our Nashville office, as well as coaching for clients worldwide. For show notes or to learn more about our work, visit GaiaCenter.co or find us on Instagram at the Gaia Center and at But For Real Pod. But For Real is intended for education and entertainment and is not a substitute for mental health treatment. Also, since we host this podcast primarily as humans rather than clinicians, we are not shy here about sharing our opinions on everything from snacks and movies to politicians and social issues. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. See you next time, bestie.